Now, what has been the case in the past is that open data from government has the strongest reason to be released, i.e. we pay our taxes, so give us the data we paid for, which has meant that government, particularly central government, has taken a lead in releasing open data. But in recent years, we've seen that industry and the third sector are also coming on board. They're realizing that their data has a fundamental value and a power which can only be unlocked by opening it up to the general public and to public view. So we start with the premise that open data can no longer be the sole preserve of technically minded, IT skilled people. It needs to be out there in the general domain, accessible to all so that its benefits can be widely realized. So we start from three basic premises. Number one, open data needs to be fully understood. Number two, it needs to be simple to open and put out there. And number three, it needs to be useful. Now, we went about this by firstly standardizing the formats for open data, because there's no way to do something widely until you understand how it should be done. And a good example of that would be the Building Information Management Task Force. I think many of you viewers may recognize the work that's done in the UK over the past years in standardizing the way the construction industry collects and shares data between the different parties in the supply chain. And doing the same thing for open data, ensuring that there's a standard approach which you can give to anyone and they can follow, is very important to breaking down the barriers to use. And the other side of that is ensuring that the data is well used once it's open. A spreadsheet somewhere on a website is not going to float the boats of most ordinary people. It's not going to get very much used, because that's not the way we understand the world. We understand it through our smartphones, through our computers, through our TVs. So it's about making data useful. And for that, we built a simple application generator and a series of template applications which take any open data set in the Citadel format and instantly turn it into a mapping app that you can use, that you can see, that you can begin to explore and play with. There's a perception that you need to protect data, that data is like gold or oil, that once you let it out there, it's gone. Someone else has got the value. But data doesn't work like that. Releasing it in no way harms its value to you because you still have the access to it. What it does is it potentially creates additional value for you or for the industry as a whole by sharing that information across different providers of construction all through the supply chain. It's possible to build greater value for the industry in terms of where the skills are and making sure they're properly met than you would ever have if everyone held on to their own data and with no detriment. So, all it really takes is for one or two companies to take the lead, to recognize the economic benefit that's out there, and also to rephrase the argument around open data away from just a social good. It is a social good. It absolutely has immense social power, but it's also an economic benefit for the person who's releasing it. So getting that data out there is not just a selfless action. It's not corporate social responsibility. It's also a competitive advantage. Getting people using your data, having a conversation around your information is a commercial benefit.
100% there's been an improvement in the way that we engage. More often than not, it's in kind of the tried and trusted manner of the local village hall. Go and be open, honest. These are our intentions. This is what we're looking to do. This is how we've tried to kind of minimise the impact. This is how we've tried to integrate this new site with the existing community, and that tends to be typically how we do it. There are some instances where the use of technology has been taken advantage of, but they're few and far between, being honest.
If you're able to start a conversation with the local community and they say, actually, this parcel of land, we'd love some houses to be built there, and this one maybe we're more split on, or it needs this kind of development, then when you come to the application stage, you've got that extra level of weight to go to the planning authorities with to say, hey, people in the local community are telling us we really want this kind of housing. Isn't that a good reason why we should streamline this process, get it through faster, and make the best choices that sort of match the demands of the local community?
And we went through a period of economic recession where a huge amount of skills kind of left the industry, and as the economy is picking up again, we find that those people are not coming back. Either they found other jobs, or we failed in retaining them. So, you were mentioning earlier, we have a skills shortage, haven't we?
So we're currently delivering around 15,000 homes a year. We want to be delivering around 20,000 by 2020, and the serious concern that there's not the people out there that's needed to do that. So as you say, there's people did leave the industry, and some of them are coming back, but the concern is that not all of them. The other concern is that it's an ageing skill base as well, and the concern is that if an older leader of a group of bricklayers, gang of bricklayers, if he doesn't come back, also the young guys that he had working with him don't come back, and they were kind of future kind of managers that were going to have gangs underneath them as well. So there is serious concern on that. It's you see it in the labour rates. So because there's a shortage, the competition for that labour is fierce, and it gets costly sourcing that labour for ourselves as opposed to our competition. And that's kind of one of the areas that we haven't really had to compete with our competitors in the last few years, but we compete for labour now.
The government and the industry shared construction industry strategy report issued last year. Makes it very clear. We have an aging workforce. We don't have the required replacement, and our modern method of construction are not quite developed enough to fill that gap. So I'm very, very interested now in how open data could help take the best of knowledge we already have and make sure it doesn't get lost.
Wouldn't it be a great start if the construction industry, together with government and people themselves, could find out where the skills live? You were talking earlier about the holy grail, that older, very skilled worker who has knowledge in his head which is going to be incredibly valuable, essential for the next generation. And maybe there are 6 or 7 of those down in a certain area of the country and absolutely none in another area. Wouldn't it be great then to be able to identify them, to reach out to them, to say, we would love 1 or 2 of you to come to this part of the country for a project, to pass on those skills, to capture those skills. And here we move away from our traditional conception of open data as just sort of numbers on a page towards more qualitative stuff. It could be short videos, just techniques, preserving that sort of knowledge, and making sure that the next generation, which is now being trained up and is going to come in and have to sort of to fill that gap, has the skills and the knowledge. That doesn't mean you're starting from scratch. So open data can really help with finding out where these people are and what they know.
So if we could map skills in the UK construction sector and have a very simple, accessible mashup of who is where, we will be starting, realizing that there is a shortage or there is an abundance of a specific skill, or maybe there is not enough understanding or a specific technique. And I think that would be an interesting starting point. I think there is a shared interest in improving the output and the outcome of the industry. So each developer, each builder should, in their own interest, in their own commercial interest, release into data related to their skills.
Yeah, I can see, as you're talking now, I'm thinking, I can see a huge benefit for the supply chain as well. It might influence kind of, where they look to set up operations based on where the skill base is, which would then obviously have a kind of secondary benefit through to us, because they would have, be delivering better products quicker, cheaper. So down the chain as well, I can see benefit.
Data mapping seems to be the easiest door into open data. So I have a different amount of variety of diversity of data. I can mash them all up onto a GIS, onto a map, really. And with that, I can just make it clear for everyone to understand what's out there. And I think starting from what's out there could be a valuable starting point for helping the housing industry.
Absolutely. I mean, we found that mapping is something which is fundamental and universal. And particularly when we come to talk about the construction industry, people understand the construction industry and the built environment in terms of the space around them. So a map is a natural starting point for collecting what is often quite diverse and different data and putting it onto a single playing field. So using maps, it's possible to get a whole range of information about the local area out there to citizens and to begin a conversation with them about how a construction project is going to affect their local area. Great example of this from someone we've engaged with a lot in the Citadel project, which is Sedgemoor Council down in Somerset. Now, the council down there is building a large nuclear power station, which is having some profound impacts on the local community in terms of people, in terms of noise, in terms of what the environment will look like. And Sedgemoor took the step of opening up all that data on a map for local residents so that they can begin to understand how exactly the nuclear power station project is going to affect their local area. And the results were that it demystified it for people. People were no longer confused. They were no longer having to sit on the phone for hours simply to find out information about how their local road was affected, for example, or how many new people were going to be in the town. They could get all that information quickly and easily. And Paul Davidson, one of our associates down there in Sedgemoor, has told us that it made the process immensely easier, both for the council and for local residents, to get this through and to build a shared understanding around that data. In the construction industry, the more information you can gather, the more you can make projects focused on ultimately the people who are going to buy and live in those homes. The more you know about them, their local area, the easier it is to construct projects which match their needs and which make for happier, better developments and also drive your commercial benefit in the future.
I love the idea of happiness indices of every one of our customers, and you're looking to map that and see, where it's high, what are the reasons why it's high, where it's maybe not quite so high, what's going on, because obviously we do use these metrics, like I say, building for life. But yeah, the happiness index of our customers, we're on board.
And also, that might be something as simple as getting your customers to engage with you over a longer time frame once they bought the house, about how they feel living in the house, so that a house is making someone feel particularly good when they're in these kind of rooms, or great when they're walking around this aspect of the outside. Just getting people to give you that kind of feedback, which becomes open data, gives everyone a better idea of how to build houses that make people happy, which is ultimately the way to sell more houses.
So, talking to a large established UK housing developer, the question is there an opportunity for open data to improve our work?
I think there is. I think this has been a learning experience for me, so I thank you both for that. I can see value in it 100% on all the streams that we've kind of discussed. I think that the happiness index is going to stay with me. That's one I want to take away and have a think about. But that the point around planning, as I say, that is a kind of it can be a real crux for us. There is such a level of risk involved in taking sites through the planning process, and anything that can kind of assist with that is really worthwhile, in my opinion.
Fantastic. So hopefully a conversation has started today, and it should continue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, Stephen, Ben, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.